Hi, this is Colleen with Speaking to Spirit, and I am here with Gina and Kate,
Hello.
Miss Haywire. And
Mm-hmm.
today we're doing kind of our more of our own paranormal experiences. We've talked a lot about our experiences on and off through different episodes, but um, we've had so many. So I don't think people ever get tired of hearing our paranormal experiences, but in particular, I wanted to hear from you, Kate, because you haven't been involved in the paranormal for your whole life. And so how did you get involved? What happened?
Yeah, so like you said, I haven't been involved with it very long or even open to the idea that there's something on the other side or whatnot. So when I really noticed something happening was my sophomore or junior year in college. I had started working in a counseling center, and it's in a building called Gravely Hall at ISU. And there was this hallway I would have to walk through. It's the anthropology hallway, and it's very cool. I just like to go through it anyways. But
No, I was just giggling. Anthropology. That's like the skulls and bones of the
oh,
ancestor type, right?
I guess I never like really thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
but
funny.
yeah, it was one of my favorite subjects in college, so it was easy for me to get lost there or talk to professors there. But as I was going through this hallway, I would feel the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I felt like there was someone right behind me, like right up on me almost. And I could hear footsteps behind me. And it was so terrifying. Like I would turn around, like convinced that like someone was about to grab me, or like, just that eerie feeling. And I turn around and there's no one there. And so coming at it, I was just in a different point in my life. I was like discovering my spirituality kind of more. I was more open and receptive, but I've always kind of held on to that scientific debunking kind of mind. So I would look and have like friends walk on different floors to see if I can mimic those footsteps. But for the 3 or 4 years that I worked there, I would constantly, every time I would go there, I would hear footsteps right behind me and have that feeling. So that was my first really big paranormal experience.
Was this daytime, nighttime, anytime?
Daytime mostly. I think there were a few times like during finals week where we would have to work until like 9 or 10 p.m. But yeah, most of the time it was in daylight. And so that was another thing that was hard for me because I believed in the stereotype of it had to be at night and like it had to have like terrible things happen there, which I mean, some bad things did happen there, but um, yeah, it just wasn't anything like I expected. Like I expected it to be typical Hollywood movie kind of
Mhm.
thing. And so it's very cool. And now that I look back on it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's totally what it was. But for someone new to the paranormal side of things, it was very eye-opening and interesting for me. And it was funny because over the 3 or 4 years, I was constantly trying to debunk it or just being like, you're crazy, like you're just in your head, and having to be like, well, you don't do this anywhere else, like, or you've never had this happen to you. So just kind of questioning things really. So
Have you
yeah.
had other experiences in other places?
Um, that's kind of hard. So let's see. I think my other experiences have been more just feelings, or I did have an experience at a funeral, which was kind of interesting. It was for someone that I didn't know. I was there to support loved ones, and I remember watching the funeral and I looked up and I saw the person looking over everyone. And it kind of scared me for a second. And it was more through third eye vision, which I didn't understand at that time. Because I always thought when you saw stuff, it would be crystal clear, like a picture right in front of you. I didn't realize third eye seeing or like just feeling the energy of things. Because I didn't like actually see it with my eyes, but I knew it was right there. Um, so that was another time that I was open and kind of experienced that. But besides that, I did a haunted tour of Pocatello, like the top 10 places that are haunted here. And the only place that I really got the heebie-jeebies with was at the craft building. That building, it feels off, like it felt bad. And I had no idea about the history until after we had gotten there and did some research on why it was haunted. So,
So what was the history that you learned about?
the history. So, I think there's a lot, and I think it evolves over time. I think the big one that a lot of people talk about is it was used for satanic worship. Um, and there's two stories. Like there was German shepherds that were sacrificed there for a ritual, that a lady was raped there and killed there. Like it kind of goes out, but it always comes back to Satanists, which I think is interesting. Um, that's the tales I've heard. I don't know if you guys have heard of the craft building at
Mhm.
all, or the
Oh,
history there.
definitely. But the part that I would like to throw my 10 cents out with is there's a huge misconception of anything satanic,
Mhm.
witchcraft. They're all people that want to sacrifice and kill things. That is not the true essence of that belief or practice. I actually have friends that are extremely productive people in society. Not that extremely productive people can't have alternative belief systems, but most people that murder and sacrifice are mentally disturbed. They're not because they're devil worshippers.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a big one in the movies. Is like, oh, and they had a star and it was devil worshiping. No, it was a crazy psychopath who wanted to kill people. And it was cool to do it during this ritual that was quote unquote acceptable, or, sold tickets to a movie or whatever. But yeah, no, we've actually had not a lot, we've had issues not just at the craft building, but in other places of people killing animals.
Mhm.
And that's like one of the steps of people that become murderers
Yeah,
or serial killers is it's not they become priests in Satanism. They
No.
are becoming people that prey
Right.
on other living things. And
Yeah.
so, but it does create an unbelievable energy
Mhm.
if something was killed there, and it was killed in a fashion where there was a frenzy, which is often the thing. But it's just really easy for people to go, oh, that was Satan worshippers.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
bad.
So
And
how I
that's not
describe
always.
it to people is I'll be like, it's like saying that you would include Lori Daybell as a Christian. Like it's very far out. It's very not actually a part of the religious belief system that's there. So I totally agree with that. I love to point out to people about that there's crazies in any group, honestly. As long as you have a
Yeah.
group of people together. So
Yeah.
Exactly. How about you? What are some of your paranormal things that you've?
Yeah, I've talked a lot about them, but so this one is kind of um I have to go to a lot of mines in Southeast Idaho, and I have two kind of stories for you. One of the mines that I have to go to for my job, um, there's, and I'm not sure if I should actually say the name of the mines, so I won't because I'm not sure if I should. But there's this particular hill when I stand on it, every time I'm there, and I'm looking down into a drainage because we have some monitoring areas in this drainage. And so I'm there a couple of times a year to look at these monitoring sites and how, what's happening at the mine. And I am glued to the side of the hill above the monitoring sites, like eye level with me standing on the hill looking down. Like there's always somebody over there looking right at me. And it gives me absolutely, and it's not a good feeling. Like whoever's up there was not a kind person. And yeah, and so I've had like
heebie-jeebies.
a hair come up on my neck, and I'm always there with two or three other people. I'm never there by myself because of safety. And I've never said anything to any of them because they already think I'm crackers. So I'm not going to say anything, but I know they've
Best
caught me
people
looking
are.
up there, and I'm always watching, and I never see, and it's not an animal. It's not animal. It's human or not human. I
Yeah.
can't tell.
I was going to say, because of our Native American history, there
Hmm.
are a lot of guardians, and we've talked about
Hmm.
that, guardians and protectors. And so, yeah, they would be angry that we gutted earth. I mean, that's basically what mining is we go in and gut to get particular minerals or whatever out of the land.
Yeah, I mean it's true, but then we all have one of these too. And so
Right.
we wouldn't have one of those without the mines. So
Right.
I have to keep everybody in perspective. So when they
Right.
start poo-pooing about stuff, it's like, well, when you flip on that switch, you know that's coming from the earth,
Mhm.
to have the light. So let's back up a little bit. So it's whatever's there though, I can't tell. It feels human to me. It feels like it's a human who's just really angry. I'm not sure it's angry at the mine though. I have a feeling like this was a person who killed a lot,
Mm.
like a
Mm.
lot. And I don't know if this person recognizes they're dead
Maybe not.
and they want to kill but can't, and that's even pissing them off even more. Like I get this just radiant anger, like, and I'm always locked on the hill, and the guys that I'm with a lot of times they're always like, "Do you see an animal up there?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and I'll just play it off. Oh yeah, I saw a moose. He was up there in the trees, and he's gone now. Because I don't want them to know that this is the every time I'm there, and I've been there 14 years now, probably 3 times a year. And it's never failed me every time I go there. I'm like, oh, yeah. And it's a really pretty area. And the drainage is a really pretty area. And there's nothing, we're actually off the mine side in this particular area. And it's really pretty, but don't like it. There's another mine that if I say enough, you all know what it is. So then that's fine. I just can't, I don't think I should say the name. But anyway, there's a trolley in Soda Springs that used to be at this mine site because
Mm.
there was a little town at this mine site and historic town. And there's a meadow on this mine that where they used to have all their picnics. And it's a beautiful place. It's my favorite when we go up to this mine. That's where I like to have lunch because there's a pond there and there's always moose in this area, and they come down and we sit on a log and we're eating our lunch, and you can just feel the parties that they had up there. They had for the little town site that was there at this mine. This is where they had their celebrations. This is where they had their birthday parties. It was that was their this what they loved this little area with this pond. And so, excuse me, my boss and I and one of the people from the mine were sitting on the log one day, and we were watching a moose and her baby come out of the trees, come down to the pond, and take a drink. And as we're sitting there, so we're being really quiet and very still because the pond's not that far from us, but still, we didn't want to spook them more than anything. I wasn't afraid of the moose. She was far enough away. And the truck wasn't close to us, so we could, bolt over there. But so we're being quiet so that they could have their little sip of water. And then all of a sudden, I heard 1920 era music. And I looked around and I'm like, did you guys hear that? And they went, you heard that? And they were like, I didn't hear it. Yeah, I didn't hear anything. And I'm like, you heard that, right? And they're like, yeah, we actually did hear it. It was probably less than 10 seconds of a snip of music. But that would have been the era that people had parties there. And
Ooh.
so, yeah, to this day, it's like everybody at this mining company, when they'll bring it up, like, yeah, I remember that time we heard that. And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to go up there and actually sit at night with some of our equipment and just be there, except that there are moose and there are cougar. And then there are,
Yeah, I was going to say.
but still, I think it would be fun to kind of sit there and just because that particular site saw so much love that
Mm.
I think it's still there. Yeah. So,
That sounds so
Yeah.
nice. That's like the
yeah.
opposite of what you hear with hauntings. Like to hear stuff that's like, oh, it's just beautiful and just a happy time, happy place. I think people forget that can happen too. So that's very cool.
That was a
Well,
question we had in class too, was like, is every haunting negative? And it's like, absolutely
no.
not.
Well, and
Absolutely not.
mining is huge here.
Yeah.
It's a huge part of Idaho. My great grandfather was in Anaconda, Montana. That's where my
Mhm.
grandfather was born, and they came here to Chalice, Mackey, this whole area to mine, and that
Right.
was their livelihood. So it's their. I mean, that was a big draw
Yeah.
to our state, and our
Well,
state is high in minerals, high in, we're the gem
the
state.
gem state, right?
You
So
know.
we have every kind of mining in Idaho, right? With silver and gold and gems, phosphate. I mean, we have now lithium. We have all kinds of mines in Idaho, and it supported a lot of people, and it supports still to this day. Um, Probably
Industries.
hundreds of thousands of people or more, because you have all the support industries that are feeding the mines, right? That are
Yeah.
the diesel coming in and the propane coming in and the tires and the equipment and the this and the that. So it's supporting the economy of Idaho, and people forget that when they think about the bad, the impacts. And mining today, I mean, we have a lot of safeguards in
Yeah,
place.
that's what I was going to say. Nowadays, it's
Right.
different.
It is.
Like when my grandfather, it was dangerous for the miners. It was dangerous for the land. I mean, they
Right.
didn't know about
They didn't know.
the risks and the,
Right.
different
It's
things
like
like that.
we didn't know
So,
babies would be premature if mama smoked. We didn't know. Now we know. So now we don't. We tell people not to smoke. So, but yeah. So those that hauntings are not necessarily negative, and sometimes you come into a place and you get that unexpected whiff of perfume, or and that makes you happy, or you just all of a sudden catch yourself smiling at something you don't know. It's the joy that's there. It's the love that was there, and this place resonates love there at this, and the company is very protective of this little meadow and this pond, and yeah, so it's pretty cool.
that was very cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was one of the things when I was a kid. My grandparents, we would go up through Chalice and Salmon and those areas, and they would be like, "Yeah, this is where your great grandpa mined." And ghost towns almost consistently around every little
Yes.
mining area, and you could feel the life. And some of them, they're protecting them. Others are pretty decrepit and falling down and stuff. But I love that. That was one of my great adventures with my grandparents growing up, was going up through Mackey and all of that and seeing, oh, my grandpa worked in this mine. Or
That
my
is
great
cool.
grandpa.
Yeah,
I
it is
guess.
really cool, that heritage, that history. I don't know if have either of you been to Bodie, California? Bodie Ghost Town. It's a state historic site now, and it's it's close to Bishop, which is, so it's on the eastern side of Yosemite, and it's very high altitude desert out there. Beautiful area. And Bodie was one of the largest silver mining um, mine towns of its era, and but it was also incredibly dangerous. And so there was a saying that said, "Goodbye, God, I'm going to Bodie," because of the bad men of Bodie, because it was a violent, very violent town. Well, as mining towns usually do, something catches on fire and the whole damn town goes, right? Well, a lot of the town caught on fire, and a lot of people, they left. Well, when they left even the food on their table.
Oh, wow.
And so it's of course not the food, but the general store's still there, and it was fully stocked. So you can see it. You can look in the buildings and you can see the place settings on the table. You can look in the general store and you can see the tins that they had of the
On the
food.
shelves, yeah.
The hearses are still there. I mean, everything is there. And so Bodie is, if you ever have a chance to go, it is premier ghost town, because it is incredibly active, of good and bad activity there. And not bad, but there was some rough guys that died there.
Yeah.
So you have the good and the bad there. So you have a lot of stuff, but it's also said to be cursed. Like, you can't take anything, even a pebble. And so the state department of the parks department there, I think it's a state monument, they get every day in the mail boxes of rocks and glass and things that people have taken off the ground, mailed back, because people
Like Hawaii.
because they're like, holy shit, my life turned upside down since I've been to Bodie, because they took
Oh
the
my
rock.
gosh.
Yeah, so every day they have packages that come in every day, and they just go and sprinkle the rocks back out in Bodie. So yeah,
It's so cool that was frozen and not like ransacked at any time or whatnot. Like
They
that you
probably
can
took
peer
things
in.
and got cursed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's a real high altitude, so it's snowed in most of the year. It's only accessible a couple of months a year, and it was pretty. I don't think it was super well known until it became a parks.
Well, and
then
silver?
at that point,
Was it silver? Is that what you said?
yeah.
because gold was a huge thing in California, the gold rush
Right.
and stuff. So
Yeah, so gold and silver, like Virginia City was mostly, well, they had gold and silver, but mostly silver was mined in Virginia City. So, but by the time the parks department came in, they put, bars on the windows and stuff so you could still see in, but you couldn't physically get in unless you took the building apart, a wall apart to get in. And so people have been really respectful of the ghost town. And you can camp there in the cemetery. So
That's so cool.
the old Western cemetery. Yeah, people do. And they are like, yeah, it's pretty cool. And there is I don't remember their name, but there is a paranormal team that is in Bodie or I think they're from Bishop area, but they go to Bodie a lot. They do a lot in conjunction with the state. Like they do a lot on the history there, and they're very active with the ghost town, and they're very respectful of the ghost town. And I watch a lot of their stuff. So shout out to them. They're really good. Really like them. Yeah. So those are kind of the two, though. What you?
How about you, Gina? Yeah.
oh my gosh, my whole life has been haunted. But one of the funny things is my husband, among other people, call me a tuning fork. They're like, oh yeah, just send Gina there. So some of the fun experiences with that, we were in New Orleans in 2016 and went to Myrtle's Plantation because I'd seen many shows about this, that, and the other. And we finally have our time. You had to set up particular times to go on tours of the big mansion. And it actually, if we'd have known, it was a B&B. So you could have stayed
there, yeah.
in that building. And we didn't know that. So we had just planned a day trip. But we walk in the door with our little group. There's, I don't know, maybe 10 people at most. And the tour guide and the lights start going. And he's like, oh, I hate when that happens when I come in here. And Aaron's like, Gina, stop it. I'm like, but weird things like that always happen. I think probably like what you were saying, you thought that you could physically see them.
Mm-hmm.
I have physically, like I can see them like I see Colleen. Sometimes they look as solid as Colleen does. The way you know that it is not a human is that it's gone. And it's like, okay, a human can't do that. But often I do. I see up here, I feel, I smell. So it's like auditory kinds of things rather than physical kinds of things. But I don't know. Ever since I was a little kid, was enamored with Halloween and haunted houses because I think that was my world. I just always saw or felt things that not necessarily everybody else did, which was a shock to me when I realized I was probably about 12 before I really understood that as I'm shaking the counter. Not everybody could see them. Not everybody could hear them or feel them. And it was normal, like drinking water to take medicine or putting a band-aid on a cut. It was just how it was. And when it came into my realm of understanding that I was different, that was a little I don't know how it made me feel. It made me feel self-conscious. I wouldn't tell people what I saw or felt. I had a time where I actually, and this is funny because we work with people, and some of the people in our class are awakening.
Mm-hmm.
Their gifts are becoming more noticeable. And it was like, they're like, yeah, I'm kind of just pushing it back. And it's like, well, let me share with you a little secret that only lasts so long. You're better to learn and understand the gifts rather than try to pretend they're not there, because you will. You get like the dam breaks and the flood hits. And it's like that can be super overwhelming. And so that's kind of been where I've gone a lot right now. But there have been, like I said, with the other podcast that we did about Fraser Hall, there are things still that unnerve me a little bit. So I can imagine new people that experience the actual touch, different things like that. But one of mine that kind of has stayed with me was every single house I've lived in is haunted. It's not, it's me. But I had a house in Boise and it was a one level, and you came in the front door and the formal front room, living room, whatever was right there. And then it was a super long hallway. On this side was kitchen, dining room, family room. On this side was bedroom, bedroom, bathroom, and then master bedroom and bathroom at the very end of the hall. So my front room was where I kept my doll cabinets. Everybody runs through. I've collected dolls my whole life, including the cute little thing.
No.
Yeah. I love them. I love them. I guess I can sense good energy. I can sense bad energy too, but
You've
so I
never seen the Killer Clowns from Outer Space
I,
movie?
I have. I've seen this is my son's favorite movie, but when we moved from Boise, I was told by my children that I could not put my dolls back out. I had big glass cabinets with mirrors and too high filled with I probably had 50 dolls, but um so that sat in there, my computer sat in there, and there was a huge window where you have those big 10-foot windows that are like only a foot off the ground and go to a foot. They take up like almost an entire wall. So when I would sit at my desk, and so I'm sitting at my desk, which is the front corner of the house, the hallway was directly behind me. And when my parents would come, they would be like, which one of you guys was up running up and down the hall in the middle of the night? And it's like, none of us were running up and down the hall in the middle of the night. So I'm sitting there one night and I'm on the computer and I hear my bedroom door up. I'm a night owl. I tend to stay up after everyone else goes to sleep. And so it was late and I'm sitting there and I hear my bedroom door open and I hear my husband walk down the hall and I feel him come up behind me and put his hands on the back of my chair. And I'm like, what are you doing up so late? No answer. I turn around. There is no one there. I would have bet my soul that my husband would be standing there. And literally, I heard it. I felt it. I felt the hands on the back of my chair. When, to be fair, when we moved in, they told us that the man had died in the home. It was a wife and children that we bought the house from. So probably was him. But constantly there were little things happening in our house. Like you would come home and, you set your cell phone down on the kitchen cupboard or your car keys and you go to the bathroom and you come back and there's nothing. And it's like, what in the world? And so my husband, where did you move my stuff? No, didn't. 2 days later, after you've tore the house upside down trying to find things, it's sitting right exactly where you put it down. We leave the house, we come home, every single light would be turned on in the house. And it's like, I know I turned off all the lights because I'm anal about making sure, you turn things off when you leave. We would come home, the garage door would be wide open. Well, yeah, maybe a cat ran through or the sensors or whatever. We had a lot of cats run through to our garage apparently because the garage door would be open a lot. You'd be in the kitchen again, you'd have your back to the dining room, living room, and the stereo would kick on full blast. The rocking chair would move. It was never anything bad. And we did have, like I said, my parents sensed it. My son would not sleep in his room. He was probably he was 4 when we moved, because he said the man was always in his room. So he would come and sleep in my room on the floor. And he was just little 3 or 4-year-old boy, but and it was always interesting because it was the man. And we did know that a man had passed in that house, but it was never anything bad. There was never, like someone being harmed or touched or things disappeared and never came back. But we did have a dog that we had adopted for a short time, and it was a Visla, which is a hunting dog, they're pretty active. She was about 6 months old, and we left one time, and we came home, and she was locked in our mudroom. So when you came in through the garage, there was a mudroom with the washer and dryer, with a door on the garage side and a door on the kitchen side, and you went into the kitchen from there. She was locked in that mudroom and had clawed and chewed almost through the entire door, which is not completely unheard of with dogs, but we didn't lock her in that room and the door shut like this. So it's not like she went in and pushed the door shut but she wanted out of that room. So, but those were some just kind of like my kids would say, why are we always living in a haunted house? It's like, we're not, well, we're haunted. They know
It's
we can
us.
sense them and feel them and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's not always anything scary. I felt extremely comfortable in that house. I loved it. It's still probably my favorite house ever. But it was funny because my first husband was very, there's no such thing. This isn't real. But there were a lot of things his engineer brain could not debunk or explain or understand. So, I don't know. It's a vast, different kind of, depending on where you are, what you're doing, and it doesn't necessarily isn't scary. It isn't always bad. There are ones that will throw a glass at you or slam a door or grab your knee while you're standing, somewhere, tackle you from behind. That's not very common. But most of the time, it's just some sort of an interaction with some non-living energy.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, good topic. Thanks for
Yes.
bringing this one up. I liked it.
Me too.
So, well, stay with us and join us on Speaking of Spirits. We keep trying to bring you good, fresh content. Kelly and I will be talking next weekend on a really interesting topic, and I will bring it up to you right now, called Cross Correspondence. And if you've never heard about it, it is fascinating.
Huh.
It's fascinating. And it's not just automatic writing, it's automatic writing with a twist. And so I found this was really fascinating to research. And so Kelly and I are going to be talking about that. And if you ever have any show ideas that you want us to dive into, please hit us up on Pocatello Paranormal on our Facebook page. Send us a message. And as always, please like and subscribe.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
You've been listening to Speaking of Spirits, powered by Pocatello Paranormal Research in Pocatello, Idaho. Thank you for joining us today. We're glad you could be here. If you're enjoying the podcast, please do us a favor and go to whatever platform you are listening to the podcast on and give us a review. We prefer the 5-star reviews. This helps us know how we're doing, and it helps others to find the podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you on our next podcast.